everybody. I'm very happy to host this great friend of mine. Please introduce yourself with your name, surname, and your country.
Great. Thanks for inviting me to be here. My name is Molly Herrington, and I live in the United States of America in North Dakota.
What is your job?
Right now, I am serving at the state of North Dakota as their Director of Leadership and Learning statewide.
Can you better explain what are your tasks?
Part of the job is working with our executive leaders and doing the executive coaching and making sure that they have a support system there so that they can be the best leaders possible for our state. The other part of that job is working with all of our other staff members across the state and helping to make sure that we have that bench of leaders in place so when our current leaders retire or move on to their next adventure, we have a new leader that is ready to plug in and understands the state system and understands the agency and has the correct competencies that we need them to have to be successful in that new role.
Based on what you said, it is very interesting the different approaches that countries have to succession plans. And it is very interesting compared to what is happening right now in my specific region, where it's all guessing.
Mm-hmm.
That will be awesome to learn how you do, and you gave us a clear picture.
Succession planning or career pathing, whatever you want to call that, the development of your people. And I do believe that you can lead at any level. Leadership should be everywhere. In order to really do this concept of succession planning in the mindset of career development and people development, we can't just save it for that upper tier of people. The process looks different, but we do have to get people to believe and understand that they can lead from anywhere. And so at the state of North Dakota, we have developed a very specific process that is called Leadership Everywhere, and it has 2 tracks in it. One track is Leadership Everywhere for Everyone, and that's where we're really working on developing some of those soft skills that we had talked about, those core skills that every leader needs to be able to display and implement effectively. The other path is much more tailored, I would say, and that is specifically for managers. But we really focus a lot on tactically, how are you managing your people, your projects? How are you managing change? And all too often, when we think of change or we talk about change, we focus on that tactical management of it, right? Like project management, what's your budget, what's your scope, what's your timeline? But we leave that human part until the very end. And that's a mistake because as leaders, we should be human focused.
When you say that the change is more on the leadership level, but when you change the mindset of the leaders, it's not a direct change into the community, but it's indirect. And I think it's even better because what you are doing, you are working with the leaders to make them more aware of what they have to do. And as we were mentioning before, when you are a leader, you're a leader. You already have those soft skills. You just have to learn how to implement them to create a change for the benefit of the world. So I would like to know more about you. How did you end up into this position?
I started university studies as a business administration, accounting, and finance. So if you look at my background, I should have been behind a computer screen, pushing numbers on an Excel spreadsheet. And I realized in some nonprofit work I was doing and some angel investor work that I was doing, that while I did enjoy the numbers side, my enjoyment of the people side of that business development equation far outweighed the numbers. So I professionally made a switch, positioned my existing skill set to be that more of a public relations, government relations type role. And so for about a dozen years, that's exactly what I did. I loved it. I completed my master's during that time in business administration as well, with an emphasis on organizational design. And in that time that I was still working and doing my master's, I was starting to think about, what do I want for the next phase of my career? How can I use the skills that I have to help grow people? And I knew that that was my mission, is I want to grow people. in a good way. Long story short, I had a friend that did not know this was a journey that I was on personally send me an opportunity to go and work for the state of North Dakota as their director of leadership and learning. And I applied and ended up moving into that position. And so now I'm actually using many of the same skill sets, but in a really different way. So I think leaders need to understand that they don't need to wedge themselves into a lane. You can take any exit you want. Just reposition the skills that you've already honed.
When I hear managers and leaders to explain their path, their career path, usually, and it happened to me today, talking to another friend, that you face such a different range of people, as a background and field of work. How important is communication?
Number one. No, that's untrue. Honesty is number one. Never lie. That's my only rule. Ask anyone that's ever worked for me. That is my only rule. Never lie. Be honest. But otherwise, communication is right up there. You also, as a good leader, have to be able to communicate with yourself. And we're not taught that. So I would say communicating at a multitude of levels is critical, including yourself.
How would you define networking?
That's a good question. I would define networking as building authentic relationships. It's not shaking hands and swapping a business card and walking away. Because if that's all it is, are you going to be able to call me 6 years after I've last seen you, Irina, and say, hey, Molly, can we talk? No. But because we started off with a very authentic connection and relationship, absolutely, we can do that anytime. And that goes back to leaders settling into being themselves and not what they think the world needs. We need more authentic leaders. And so to me, networking is being comfortable with your authentic self. It is not only making the connections, but maintaining them and building something meaningful for each side of that relationship.
Yes. I've heard from another leader from Angola that for him, networking is like a tree, feeding the tree, letting the tree grow. It's a farming activity. And
that's a beautiful analogy. I can see that. It is.
So a leader doesn't lie, is honest, builds up his relationship on authentic relationship, open communication, active listening. How do you describe a leader? What is missed in my description?
They have to have a heart of service. I say that not meaning that they have to sacrifice everything in their life, but I do believe that a genuine leader doesn't go into the situation saying, what can I get out of this? They go into every situation genuinely taking a moment to think about, what does this group need from me? And it becomes about that group of people that you're serving instead of about you climbing some invisible ladder. And I also believe that a leader has a healthy desire for risk. Not necessarily careless risk, but they know when risk is healthy and when they should help a group grow and stretch beyond their current bounds.
Do you have a dream with a deadline?
When you sent me the PDF on the nonprofit that you're working on, and I read Dream with a Deadline, I laughed at myself because I've had a big dream for a long time, and guess what it was missing? A deadline. It was kind of one of those things that I keep saying, at some point in my life, I will develop this for, whether it's my community or the state. From our part of the United States, we are big trade partners. We have a lot of business type international activity. But if you would come with me and you would walk down the main street, I live in our capital city, you would see limited diversity and limited interaction between the diverse populations that we do have. And I really do believe that for our state and beyond the state of North Dakota, for our region of multiple states that are in this same position, I would love to see a program focused on cultural competency. My dream right now, without a deadline, but you've inspired me to put a deadline, is to work with some groups that are already trying to do this, but incorporate those diverse populations into that long-term population that's been here. Hopefully that makes sense.
It does make sense. Thank
Yeah.
you very much, Molly. That was very nice of you to take some time and spending some time on this project. We are going to match our deadlines.
I like it. Yes. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm glad I finally got to see you again.